Hello everyone, Michael here from the Daily Note 23 YouTube channel. So you may have heard that the Samsung Galaxy S5 was announced about a day or two ago. The reason I pay close attention is that in the past, when the new model of the Galaxy S comes out, it usually offers some insight on what the next version of the Galaxy Note will be like. So here are my first impressions of the Samsung Galaxy S5.
My first thought when I saw it was, why is it so much bigger? For example, the Galaxy Note 3 is smaller and lighter than the Galaxy Note 2, yet it has a bigger screen size and better battery life than the Note 2. The S5, however, is thicker, wider, heavier, and taller, and some of those dimensions grew rather significantly, yet it has very little gains to show for it. I also thought it is missing a touch of elegance. I thought the S3 was the best looking Galaxy S so far, the second being the S4, but the S5 looks a little muted. Sure, the Galaxy Note 3 is just as minimalistic in design as the S5 when it comes to the shape of the device, but it has a brushed metal look on the frame, and in such a minimalistic setting it makes a big difference. With that said, the CPU and GPU is absolute top notch on the S5. The early benchmarks show it is unquestionably the fastest Android to date, although it is only slightly faster than the Galaxy Note 3. The Note 3 having 3 gigs of memory, everyone expected the S5 to of course come with 3 gigabytes of memory, but the S5 will only have 2, which is the same amount of RAM we even saw on the LTE versions of the S3. But if you understand how memory works on Android, it really isn't too big of a deal. Unlike a PC where an application has access to all the free memory on your computer, an Android app is limited to a small fraction of the memory available on the average smartphone today. The only times where it may be of some convenience is when you are actively switching between many apps while multitasking. Considering the S5 has a smaller battery, it is probably a good thing having less applications in the memory for the battery life of the S5 since Android still doesn't have a complete handle on runaway background processes that occasionally may drain your battery unexpectedly. As for internal storage, I was surprised that 16GB is even an option being offered for manufacturing. You should know by now that when a smartphone says it is a 16GB phone, you have to factor in that you only really start off with 90% of that. Load all the system software, which is around 6GB now on Android 4.4, and you're left with somewhere around 8GB of usable storage for the apps that you want to install. That's significantly less than what you probably envisioned when you decided to buy a 16GB device. So unless you consider yourself to be a very light user of the smartphone and don't treat the Google Play Store as a source of entertainment, you should really invest in a 32GB device to avoid having to always tightly manage the storage and the apps you have installed on your smartphone. How about the 64GB option? Well, having been the owner of one of the rare 64GB Korean Galaxy models, I could say that the extra space was mostly wasted. I ended up installing 30GB of 3D games that I rarely ever had time for. If it wasn't for games, I would fill it up with days worth of TV shows that never got watched. I still played games and watched videos regularly on my device, but it could have been just as easily handled with a 32GB device with a 64GB external SD card, which is on my Note 3 now. For the Galaxy S5, it is obvious that Samsung has invested heavily in the photo and video features of the device. It has gotten the 4K video that we first saw on the Galaxy Note 3, but what's really interesting in my opinion is the HDR video. High resolution video is great, but when it feels like it was shot with a smartphone, you know that look. Black shadows and white skies. It is really difficult if not impossible to work with. However, having the option to shoot HDR video may prove to be incredibly useful because it gives you a lot more flexibility for the video to be adjusted. And hopefully the video will be good enough for even semi-professional applications. So anyway, those are my first impressions on the Samsung Galaxy S5. It seems as though the general consensus is that people are underwhelmed by it. I think everyone expects to be wowed by something that they never expected at these launch events, and maybe the S5's launch didn't offer that. But it seems as though the trend has shifted now and Samsung likes having their best new features when they unveil the next Galaxy Note. Well, we can only hope.
So that's it for today's video. So what are your thoughts on the Samsung Galaxy S5? Is there a killer feature that you would like to see on the next version of the Samsung Galaxy Note? Please feel free to share those thoughts in the comments below, and make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more upcoming videos. And as always, thank you for watching.